This podcast is certified fresh. Freshmediaworks.com.
Welcome to Lunch with Chris. We're your host, Chris Daly, brings you uplifting interviews with extraordinary individuals making a positive impact. Join as he introduces remarkable people who have left their mark on their respective fields.
Hey, you there. Yes, you. Have you ever thought about unleashing the power of AI for your business? Fresh Media Works is here to make it happen. From boosting productivity to revolutionizing customer experiences, AI holds endless possibilities. A small investment in AI, combined with our expert guidance, will begin to transform your business quickly. Ready to dive in? Give us a call now at 713-269-4620 or head over to freshmediaworks.com/AI.
All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Frank Agin from Am Spirit to the show. Frank, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess first let's give some explanation. I ran into you, I think it was LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, was it Alignable, right?
I think that's where we originally connected. But, I have this habit of whenever I run into somebody on Alignable, I go find them on LinkedIn. So
yeah, me too.
We've probably talked both places and then had a Zoom call.
Nice, yeah. And, what I do is on this show, at least, this is a show that I reserve for talking to people I find cool. And so you qualify.
All right. Oh, well, there you go. That's I don't know if that's a high bar or a low bar, but thank you. Yeah.
Well, there's been some pretty big names on here, so I think it's pretty high bar. So I guess let's back up. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, about 4 hours north of Green Bay, in a little town in Michigan called Houghton. It's a college town, Michigan Tech University. So my dad was a professor there. So that's how we ended up there. Yeah. They got I think over the last 40 years, they've averaged 140 inches of snow a year. So
wow,
it's a different world.
Yeah, totally. As you say different, where are you now?
I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, everyone talks about they're going to go Florida, retire to Florida. This is my Florida, right? We don't get 240 inches at any point in time. So
nice. So I guess give me a background of what were your interests growing up, education, how you got into the business world.
Well, I think like most kids, I was really interested in sports. I don't know that I had aspirations of playing professional sports, but I played football a lot. It's hockey country up there. Played a lot of hockey. I ran track, but I remember my senior year in high school, I just I love playing football. It's something you have a whole podcast on that. And I just made a decision that I was going to play college football. Now, this Upper Peninsula Michigan football is not Texas high school football.
Right.
My high school was a bunch of kids who were sons of professors at Michigan Tech University, so we got clobbered week in and week out. But I enjoyed the game, and that led me to college in Wisconsin. So, yeah, small college, Division III school.
And what position did you play?
I was a defensive tackle. Again, I was small, but that's, for my high school, I was big. But I went off to college, it's like, man, these guys are huge. And I was able to adapt. I lifted a lot of weights. Pound for pound, I could lift a lot of weights. And I always spent a lot of time in the summer running and getting in shape. And that was, quickness and stamina was kind of my equalizer, if you will. So as the game wore on, I didn't wear down.
Yeah. So. And somewhere along the line, like you said, you didn't have pro aspirations, so you had another plan. Talk about the career plan.
Yeah, I don't know that I really had another plan, Chris. When they asked me, I went there to play football. I didn't even visit. I just went to play football, and didn't want to get kicked out the football team. So I studied, pretty much every day and did really well. And they asked me my junior year, "What are you going to do?" And I'm like, I haven't really thought about it. Maybe I'll go open a video store in my hometown. And they said, "Well, you can't do that. You're like seventh in your class or something like that." So I just made a decision to go to law school and ended up at the Ohio State University, and got into they have a joint degree program where you can get your law degree and MBA at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I didn't really have a big plan other than, okay, I'm going to go to law school and try and figure out what's next.
Take us from there. What was next?
Yeah, I took a lot of business courses in undergrad and accounting, and I liked the numbers. And I don't know that I ever really wanted to practice law, but I did a lot of tax type classes in law school, and so I ended up being a tax consultant with one of the big 6 accounting firms. It was at the time Coopers & Lybrand, and now it's PricewaterhouseCoopers. And it was a great job, Chris. It was great pay. It was great everything. It would be everything that a law student would aspire to, if you will. And after about 6 years, I'm like, well, probably after about 4 years, I'm just like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Different day, same question about the tax code. And I just decided to leave and go into private practice. And that's really kind of where things took a very unique turn, if you will.
Yeah. And so I guess, how do you get from, okay, now I have private practice to AmSpirit? That seems like a big jump too.
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of the story. It's that I left and went into private practice. And I tell people a funny thing happened when I went into the private practice of law, and the funny thing is that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. It's, they don't teach you that in school. They don't teach you at the big firm. The work's all there. Mm-hmm. And it's especially complicated for attorneys because we're really not supposed to be out there calling people. So I struggled trying to figure out how to make this, how to get clients. I had no idea. The phone wasn't ringing. Now, what are you supposed to do? This is. I didn't even have a cell phone at this point in time, and most people didn't at that. It was in the mid-'90s. So somebody suggested I get into a tips club or a leads group, and I really didn't know what they were talking about, but I was desperate, quasi-desperate. I could have gone and got my tax job back. I didn't want to. And so I went to this meeting where they brought together entrepreneurs, sales reps, and professionals on a weekly basis to learn about each other and exchange referrals. Mm-hmm. It made total sense to me that you could lift up your whole world and just trust that people would help you become successful. You help them and trust that they'll help you. And so I really doubled down on that. And, my law practice was going well. At one point, I had an opportunity to become part of the leadership team with respect to that organization. It was based out of Pittsburgh. If you're familiar with BNI, it was very similar to BNI. And in fact, the woman who started it, she knew Ivan Meisner, and I don't exactly know the whole story there, but I know the organizations are very similar. But in the early 2000s, she was kind of looking to cash out a bit, and I was very intrigued by just this whole notion of helping, helping small business types, entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals become more successful through networking. So I had an opportunity. I bought the business and rebranded it as AmSpirit Business Connections.
I want to get into the weeds a little bit about the business model of networking, because you see the BNIs, you see, all these different leads groups, and some of them are volunteers kind of coming together and organizing. Some of them have dues. Some of them have sponsorship deals. What have you seen as far as the range of business models? Because they got to pay for themselves, or they go out of business.
Yeah, no. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, we have dues associated with our organization, similar, just like BNI has dues associated with it. Most there needs to be some sort of economic model. Right. There are people out there who have free groups, and that's fine. But I always tell people, you can go ahead and do your own group. You could sell your own house. Chris, you can start your own podcast. You don't need a professional to help you. But, statistics show that you're better off working with a professional. And that's really that's really the value we bring. I've got myself and, a team of franchisees and other directors that, we talk about what works and what doesn't work. And when chapters run into trouble, we generally have the answer is, okay, this is what we need to be doing to fix this. Whereas people who are just kind of off on their own, or somebody's kind of a volunteer, as soon as they start hitting speed bumps, and anytime you get more than one human in a room, there's going to be speed bumps. Yeah. Little issues, things start to fall apart. And, so that's the economic model, and that really what makes it work. I have members that have been around, not one or two. I've got lots of members that have been around for like 25 years. It's really kind of inspiring to see how they've built their lives just with this organization. They really don't do much marketing beyond that.
Nice. So I guess let's talk about what differentiates AmSpirit from a BNI or from another. I don't want to mention other ones and disparage them, but yeah. So how are y'all different?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. To be honest, I've never been in BNI, so it's hard for me to make a comparison. Mm-hmm. But what I do tell people is that when you come to AmSpirit, you can expect that the focus is going to be on referrals. It's not just networking. I tell people, get a keg of beer or a box of donuts and you can bring a crowd, right? And it's, we want to be more than just a network. We really work with our members trying to get them to understand why they might not be getting referrals and how they can make changes to that. And a lot of it's just in their messaging and getting people to understand, certainly developing relationships. And we do that. That's part of coming together. But beyond that, just getting people to understand how to message, getting people to understand when is a good time to refer them, and not just tell us what they do over and over again, using jargon that most people don't understand. You have to talk in terms that people understand, and that's a lot of what we do week in and week out with our groups, is getting people to really lean into how they talk about their businesses.
Nice. And give me just an overview. What does a typical meeting look like? How's it flow?
Yeah, it's like, I shouldn't say like most meetings. We're kind of sticklers for starting on time. Let's get the meeting started on time, because generally they're over in 60 to 75 minutes. Starts on time. We share some information about the organization, and then we turn to guests, and we often have guests and let the guests introduce themselves, who they are, what they do, how the people in the group could help them. And then we'll go around and have the members introduce themselves quickly to the guests. There are officer reports. These groups don't run themselves, and so people are putting a little bit of time in, generally within the meeting, as far as, okay, what's happening? What do we have going on the horizon? Do we have socials? Things like that. And then we turn it over to a member in the chapter to give a presentation about their business, give us a deep dive into how we can find referrals for them. From there, there's a few announcements, and then at the end of the meeting, we go around and everybody has an opportunity to talk about what's a good referral for them, and then also share the referrals that they've generated for other people. And that's it in a nutshell. It's, we'll have groups that are, 20, 30, and they're in and out of there in 60 minutes. It's a lot of fun. It's very productive.
Nice. And what about a lot of business networking and just networking in general turns into a social club without much emphasis on business and referrals. I've seen groups where people have been coming for 20 years and they're friends and nobody exchanges business. How do you make sure that becomes a part of it?
Well, we have a system where we keep track of referrals. People, when somebody has a referral, if I had a referral for you, I would write it up, and then that would go into a database, and then chapters produce a report every month showing who's given referrals and who's received referrals, but more importantly, who hasn't gotten referrals. So if at the end of a month you haven't gotten referrals, we're going to, okay, stop the presses. Chris didn't get a referral. Let's focus some attention on it. Now, you might say, yeah, thank you, guys. I got a bunch the month before. I'm really busy. I've got no complaints. Or it might be, okay, there's something we're missing here. Who are we looking to, help us understand? And that's part of the continual focus on referrals.
And then you'd mentioned earlier about if a chapter was having trouble, how to go in there and straighten some things out. Talk about some typical troubles that come up. Yeah,
a lot of times where chapters run into troubles is they look at the structure or the meeting structure and say, okay, why we keep doing this every month? Let's tweak this. And it's like, no, you just keep doing what works. Again, it's like podcasting, right? I mean, there's a formula there, and if you start departing from that formula, you're going to run into problems. So a lot of times it's things along those lines. Occasionally you'll run into some infighting between members. They'll get sideways with each other, and you lack of a better term, kind of have to referee situation. But a lot of it is really getting people to, it's really digging into with respect to the referrals. Because sometimes there are members who've been around and really get it. And then there are newer members or members who may not quite understand what we're trying to get them to do. One of the things we talk about a lot is don't tell me what you do, tell me when you do it. So for example, you're a podcaster, you help people with podcasts, you help people create that sort of content. That's what you do. Right. And the when is more important when you start talking about, if somebody who is let's say a life coach, or you need somebody who's that professional that needs to really get their name in the community. Like, for example, like me as an attorney, right? Attorney starting out, I can't call people, but I could have a podcast where I have an opportunity to just answer questions about the law. And that gives me an opportunity to come into people's lives in a very non-threatening way to, here are things you need to look for in a lease. And people are going to listen to that. Oh, he seems like a reasonable person. I'm going to ask, I'm going to call or, arrange time to meet with me, the attorney, on a more one-to-one basis. And that's how, you pick up clients. And so when, those are the wins, right? You're talking about, okay, who are the people you serve and when do you serve them? Not everybody is a great candidate for a podcast, right? The homeless person's not a great candidate for a podcast. Right. And so if somebody's saying, hey, anybody's good for me, no, it's not. So.
I got you. And you talk about the educational aspect of this, because that is just being around like-minded entrepreneurs is super helpful.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a hidden benefit, if you will, of the organization. People are learning all the time about different things, how to promote their business, where they should be where they should be spending their time networking. Hey, did you know, I mean, there are always the big things out there that nobody ever misses, but it's the little things. Hey, did you realize there's this going on in the community? It's kind of a secret, if you will, or not widely known. Different types of software to use. It's, just little things. And those are the educational sorts of things. And it might even be little tidbits, to be honest, Chris. I always tell people the difference between the haves and the have-nots are the little bits of information. I always remember a meeting and somebody was talking about, why, how do I stop renting was the question, Well, you've been at your place, at least in the state of Ohio, you've been at your place for more than a year. The attorney's like, you're automatically on a month-to-month lease. You can leave with 30 days notice at any point in time. Oh, I didn't realize that. Yeah. We all have information in our lives that's unique to our profession. And, when people start talking, it naturally comes out and people help one another.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely the aspect of, I know a guy really expands here because I met you at a networking event and you're an attorney looking for work. Now I know an attorney. So now it carries a lot more weight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me, how many chapters do you have?
Chris, I'm always the last to know. I was told 140 something from my assistant. And she says there are more starting this week. She's kind of on the front line of it. Yeah, but we're, I've got about 20 franchisees plus or minus, 8 or 9 different states. And, it just continues to grow.
Well, it's good. Define your differentiation between a chapter and a franchise.
Yeah, well, when a franchisee buys rights, a franchisee would have rights for a particular area. We would define it by county. And then that franchisee could start as many chapters as he or she felt they could handle. A chapter is just one, it's just one collection of people. So we have franchisees out there that have 10, 15 groups that they're starting and always looking to start more. And then I have other people who have started chapters, and we support either one.
And you mentioned several states. Give us an idea of the locations.
Certainly Ohio, that's where I'm based. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Chicago, Illinois, Phoenix, Arizona, Pensacola, Miami, Florida, Boston, Massachusetts. Trying to think where else. Southern Wisconsin, the Biloxi area, Mississippi. Just talked to somebody. I talked about Alabama last week, Jacksonville, Florida, Knoxville, Tennessee. I mean, these are people, Portland, Oregon, Orlando, people who have expressed interest, and we're kind of in discussions, one form or another. Denver, Colorado came up last week. Have a conversation this week regarding Denver. So, yeah.
And if somebody's interested, there's either not much in terms of networking in their area, or maybe they don't like what's available and they're interested in looking into AmSpirit. How do they go about that?
Yeah, the best thing would, thanks for asking, the best way would just to be get a hold of me. I don't know what you'll have in your show notes, but I have a personal website, Frank Agin, AGIN.com, and it has all my contact information, the books written, access to my podcast, so on and so forth. And they can certainly get a hold of me through there. Email is always best. Or you could go to the AmSpirit website and we have a contact form to reach out. But always happy to have a conversation. And we run into people who don't have something in their area, or we have people who have things in their area but they can't find a group. Or we have people who, can find a group but they're not really happy with what might be in their particular area for whatever reason.
Got it. And you mentioned books and a podcast. Give me a little info about those.
Yeah, I have a podcast. I'm 753 episodes in. I think it's going to last at this point. I'm not sure. It's called Networking RX, and we talk about things related to professional relationships, business networking, and best practices for exchanging referrals. This morning I just recorded an short episode on reconnecting with people we've lost touch with. And I do a lot of interviews. I'm going to have on this Friday, I think we're set. Sometime later this week, we're going to be on. And we're going to talk about podcasting. But as far as books, yeah, I've written several books on professional networking. My first book, my main book, is called Foundational Networking. And in it, I talk about the attitudes and habits that we have to be successful, and that networking is really not about strategy and tactic. It's really about how we treat others and how we think about ourselves, how we carry ourselves.
I love that, and I have to say, after we first met, and before I knew I was going to be on your show, I went and checked out Networking RX, and I recommend it highly. Lots of great information. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's done well. I think we're top 2.5% of podcasts out there. I think like anything, you stick around long enough, right? It's just
that's the key.
Yeah. And it's, have I thought about stopping? Not really. There's just so many things to talk about and interesting people to talk to, and just a little bit of tidbits. Back to your question earlier, the information that our networks share, I'll run into somebody saying, I was listening to such and such podcast, and that was really kind of a game changer for me because now I'm doing this. Great. That's why we do these things.
I love it. Well, Frank Agin, gosh, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me, sharing some of your story and the good, positive works you're doing to help business people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity again. This has been great. I can't wait to turn the tables and have you on mine.
Have you ever thought about doing your own podcast? It is the absolute best way to grow your brand, spread your message, and build your following. Fresh Media Works can help. We do all the heavy lifting, and you just focus on your message. To find out how easy we can make launching your new podcast, call 713-269-4620 or check us out at freshmediaworks.com.